Hello and welcome to the Yakutumbism podcast. Today we'll be discussing three topics, two of which are from North Kivu, one of which is from South Kivu. All relates to the war in the east. So the first topic comes from South Kivu, that being the attack on the Bijombo IDP camp that occurred on December 31st, 2020, also known as New Year's Eve. This attack was orchestrated by the Engumino and Twirwaneho terrorist groups. These organizations are part of the South Kivu Tutsi community, which is commonly referred to as Banyamulenge. These armed groups, especially the Twirwaneho, are actually endorsed by local Banyamulenge community leaders. So it's not just an armed movement that is sort of said, okay, we're going to represent the population without their consent. They actually have the endorsements of the Banyamulenge leaders in the region. Now, these groups claim that they are self-defense militias. They claim that they're protecting South Kivu's Tutsi community, the Banyamulenge, from an alleged genocide that is orchestrated by the Mai Mai groups in the region, namely Yakutumba's CNPSC coalition. Obviously, we know this is false. There's no Banyamulenge genocide. That narrative is pretty much just used to make the Banyamulenge look like victims so they can get more concessions, and so that the plan of balkanization in the Congo is ignored and it is downplayed. Now, back to the attack. It was targeted at a group of around 50 women and children who were around 3 kilometers outside of the camp, tending to farming activities. The attackers sort of ambushed them. They weren't aware, they didn't see them coming, and just started shooting into the crowd. Most of the women and children actually managed to get away, but unfortunately 6 were killed in the attack. 4 women, 2 children, a boy and a girl. I think the youngest was a boy who was 10 years old, so unfortunate. Obviously all of the victims were not Tutsi. They were members of native Congolese tribes, native Congolese ethnicities. They were targeted for who they were. Now, something I find interesting is pretty much immediately after the attack was first reported, I believe it was first reported on L'Opération de l'Autodéfense Mai Mai, which is a Facebook page connected to South Kivu Mai Mai forces. So pretty much as soon as this attack was first reported, pretty much around the same time as the Mai Mai Facebook page reported the attack, the Twirwaneho and the Mahoro Peace Association, which is a sort of Banyamulenge activist group that's based in the United States, as well as Canada, I believe. They pretty much act as the sort of political and like sort of diplomatic wing of the Twirwaneho. They are pretty much their voice. The Twirwaneho and the Mahoro Peace Association, they obviously follow each other on Twitter. It's I believe I've reported on this before on Instagram. And also they pretty much just make similar statements, and the Mahoro Peace Association defends the Twirwaneho a lot. They're with that self-defense narrative. So both of them went on Twitter to denounce the attack. Sounds great, right? Sounds like they're finally owning up to their community's actions, denouncing things that their militia did. Maybe the Twirwaneho's media center said, oh, we didn't order this attack, and we're going to punish our troops for doing it, or whatever. No, didn't happen. Instead, they decided to flip the script and blame the Mai Mai for the attack. So the Twirwaneho themselves, let me quickly pull up the statement here. But essentially, they just kind of denounced the attack, as I said, and instead decided to flip the script and blame the Mai Mai. So the statement here reads, "We strongly condemn the killings of 12/31/20 in Bijombo. The AEDD Association in Bijombo has just confirmed that the attack was committed by the Belose Bishambuke militia. The attack took place 80 kilometers from the Twirwaneho operational zone, and no one can blame us for it," pretty much. So they're pretty much just saying, yeah, it wasn't us. Bijombo or whatever is too far away from where we operate, and so it couldn't have been us. Now, they provide a screenshot here, which is pretty much a it's a WhatsApp screenshot of an unknown texter, but it pretty much just is their statement virtually. They pretty much just copy pasted from WhatsApp. Now, the problem with this statement is no AEDD association, to my knowledge, has attributed it to the Bolose Bijombo. And additionally, the operational zone of the Twirwaneho sort of coincides with the Ngumino because they work together. They're very these two groups are very close because they both represent the same community, and their commanders are strong allies. Except in some cases, sometimes there are internal clashes. There was one a few months ago, I believe. But essentially, the Twirwaneho has access to the whole Ngumino operational zone and where they operate. Now, the Ngumino has its area of operations also contains the Bijombo IDP camp. They've attacked there before. They've been seen in that area, sort of things like that. So the whole, it's 80 kilometers away from our operational zone, just doesn't fit in here. Because obviously they're able to work with the Ngumino. The attack was reported as both the Ngumino and the Twirwaneho together attacking this camp, so that whole thing just doesn't make sense. Additionally, the whole alleged confirmation that it was Bolose Bijombo is completely unsourced, and besides this anonymous WhatsApp text, we have no real proof that it was the Bolose Bijombo Mai. And basically, this tweet is also quoting the Mahoro Peace Association's tweet, which virtually says the same thing. It says, sources confirm that they were killed by the Mai Bolose Bijombo. We call for an investigation, the prosecution of the thugs, and the deactivation of the Bijombo. But once again, no sources provided, nothing besides the same exact picture that was posted on the My Facebook page. Now, if you want a sort of different sort of source saying the same stuff I'm saying, attributing it to the Ngumino and Twirwaneho and not the Bolose Bijombo, you can look no further than Radio Okapi, which, although it is sort of funded and supported by MONUSCO, I find it to be quite an unbiased source. It doesn't really beef up MONUSCO at all. It kind of just tells the facts how they are in most cases. So Radio Okapi themselves reported that these people were killed in an attack by suspected fighters from the Ngumino Twirwaneho coalition. So even Radio Okapi themselves are stating that it was likely to be the Ngumino and Twirwaneho. In this Radio Okapi article, which is entitled South Kivu, 6 People Killed in an Armed Attack in Bijombo, it doesn't mention anywhere that the attack was carried out by Mai forces. It doesn't mention that there's even a sort of thought in anyone's mind that it was caused by the Bolose Bijombo or any other Mai group. Now, basically, the whole deal with the Mahoro Peace Association, Twirwaneho's whole deal, their whole sort of social media presence is pretty much just exists to deflect things. Like, the amount of attacks that have been carried out by Tutsi armed groups in South Kivu that they have blamed on the Mai. There was one point, if anyone remembers the ADF Massacre that occurred in July of last year, 2020, the Mahoro Peace Association both denied the massacre happening. The head of the Mahoro Peace Association, I think her name is Adele something, I forget, but the head of the Mahoro Peace Association basically straight out denied the massacre. She said it was a faux massacre, so it allegedly never happened to them. But then I saw something, I believe it was on their Twitter or Facebook, where they just kind of flipped the script. They said it was the Mai that committed the massacre. So obviously the Mahoro Peace Association on the Twirwaneho's Twitter can't really be trusted because they can't stick to one narrative. And also, none of their information is really sourced. I saw one post by them. They're trying to claim that General Yakutumba had organized a racist protest to try and say, oh, we're going to wipe out the Banyamulenge or whatever. And they complained that the police were doing nothing to stop it. In the video provided, General Yakutumba is not seen anywhere. The most that is sort of like there's the dude who filmed it, who's talking about Yakutumba. And also, like, as was mentioned in the replies to that, it's the right of every Congolese citizen to be able to hold protest. So the fact that police didn't intervene or joined in means that they're respecting Yakutumba's constitutional rights. Sure, he might be the leader of a non-state actor in the conflict, but it's still his constitutional right to protest. And additionally, as I previously mentioned, he's not even seen in the video. So honestly, they could be lying about him organizing the protest, because we don't see him on video, we don't see him with the crowd, things like that. And additionally, their whole claim about it being a racist, kill all the Banyamulenge protest, that's also unverified. We have no idea where even the protest was, who organized it, who was there, because obviously Yakutumba was not seen there, and what exactly they were calling for. They're just making up BS, like, at this point. They're just making stuff up to discredit the Mai Mai, to discredit the people who want to defend the country from Rwandan balkanization. They want to defend the country from bad governance, and they want to defend the country from terrorists. It's just, you cannot trust these people. They make stuff up to discredit true Congolese patriots, and all of their information is unsourced, and they work with a terrorist organization. Like, that should be the first sign. They follow a terrorist group on Twitter, and the terrorist group follows them back, and the terrorist group retweets their things. The terrorist group quote tweets their things and agrees with them. They say the same exact stuff that the MPA is stating. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. These people should not be trusted. You should never take their word on anything. And the whole reason they exist is just to discredit people who truly want to defend the country and truly want to make it better. Now, for our next topic, we're going to be talking about a recent attack by the Allied Democratic Forces, the ADF, in North Kivu. So this occurred in Tingwe, which is around 8 kilometers away from Eringeti. Essentially, pretty much everyone in that village was murdered or kidnapped. So the initial death toll was 16, but the next day it was raised to 24. The attack occurred on January 1st, so New Year's Day. And basically 24 people were killed and a number of others were kidnapped. So another horrible tragedy, but the fact that this is just something that happens every day is both a problem and both horrible. This 16 people dying, there's 24 people dying in an ADF attack now at this point is just something that is grown to be normal in North Kivu, which is a problem. The fact that the ADF are still active, the fact that they're still able to carry out these massacres is ridiculous. Obviously, the FARDC launched an offensive in October of last year. Not even. In October of 2019. They launched it in late October 2019. And it is currently January 2021. It's been over a year since that offensive was launched. And the ADF are still killing, and they're still doing it virtually daily. Now, either the FARDC has to step up their game or MONUSCO needs to intervene. That's the other thing. MONUSCO hasn't done anything. Besides maybe train a few soldiers. I think there was the Brazilians training a few FARDC soldiers. But besides that, MONUSCO hasn't done anything towards the ADF. Isn't their mandate to protect civilians? Isn't that the number one thing they're concerned about, is the protection of Congolese civilians? If they really cared about the lives of Congolese civilians, then they would be heavily involved in this effort to drive the ADF out of the country. But instead, They're like, oh yeah, we can train 10, 15 soldiers with our Brazilians, and then we can probably fly over and give you maps. Where's the firepower that we saw in 2017 against the CNPSC Nuvera? Where are the helicopters? Where are the APCs? Where are the tanks? Where's the artillery? Where's the stuff that was brought out against M23? Where's the Force Intervention Brigade that was specifically designed to hunt down these armed groups? Where's all this? Why can't we use this against the ADF? What's so different about the ADF that makes it so that we can't use all these tools that MONUSCO has that the FARDC doesn't? Obviously, it's no secret that the FARDC isn't the best military force. It's not a secret that the FARDC doesn't have the best equipment, the best training. But we have a multinational force. We have Indians, Pakistanis, we have Tanzanians, South Africans, Malawians, Ukrainians. We have people with much better military training, with much better equipment that can both help and also participate in these offensive actions. But guess what? They refuse to do it. But they've done it before, which is the weird problem, the weird thing. Why can't we have this happen again? It's not like MONUSCO hasn't participated in anti-armed group actions. Hell, they've even participated in actions against the ADF themselves. But for some reason, it's just we can't do it now when they're massacring tens of civilians every single day, when they're forcing thousands of people to leave their homes every single day. When back when the Ebola outbreak was a thing, they were attacking people and disrupting the health effort. We couldn't send a few of the FIB boys to go take them out. No, we couldn't reinforce the Congolese military. We couldn't help them at all. We can just provide them maps and intelligence and do a few patrols. It's ridiculous. But the thing is, back when I said MONUSCO's number one thing is protecting civilians. That's the thing. That's what they say. MONUSCO doesn't actually care about protecting Congolese civilians. If they did, then we wouldn't have any of these genocidal armed groups in Congo. We wouldn't have the ADF, we wouldn't have Kodako, we wouldn't have the Engumino, we wouldn't have the Twirwaneho. Hell, the FDLR would have been crushed in 2010. Probably earlier. But no, their mandate may say that they care about protecting civilians, but that's absolutely categorically false. The only thing they care about is protecting Kinshasa. So long as Kinshasa is fine, so long as the government in Kinshasa is in power and it's okay, that's a victory for them. That's the failure of these UN peacekeeping missions, is they don't actually do what's needed. They don't actually see what's happening on the ground and adjust themselves and perform what needs to happen in order for these peacekeeping missions to be successful, in order for people to be saved, in order for the conflict to end. They just perform the bare minimum. Sure, they may do a lot of great things. They might set up IDP camps, things like that, but they're doing the bare minimum required. And they just got their mandate extended for another year. Another year of being useless, another year of sitting in holes waiting for their salaries, as Jean-Pierre Karari put it, the leader of the APCLS. I might not agree with him on a lot of things, but I do agree with him on that. They don't know a lot about what's happening on the ground, nor do they care. They only care about the government being in power. So long as the government stays in power and nothing changes in Kinshasa or nothing affects the government's control, that's a victory for them. That's why they brought out helicopters and tanks and artillery against Yakutumba in 2017. Because he actually was able to challenge the government. He was actually able to take territory. He was actually able to capture villages, capture towns, capture cities. They were about to capture Uvira. the second largest city in South Kivu province. They were about to go capture Uvira, march on Bukavu. They were about to seize the entire province. They were about to seize North Kivu. Because they threatened the government, that's why MONUSCO intervened. Well, I digress. And for our final topic, it's another one from North Kivu, this time regarding the Nduma Defense of Congo Renove, everyone's favorite armed group, it seems, in recent years. In recent times, everybody's focused on it. They've become less of a sort of side type deal, and they're now a lot more important, a lot more, there's a lot more focus on them in recent times. So basically what happened was the NDC-R of Gidon, not the whole Gilbert Bouira thing, which some of that group still exists, but it's just we really have no idea what the hell is going on still. But none of that Gilbert Bouira thing. The original NDC-R of Gidon, Shimure, Emwisa. They launched an offensive against one of their rivals, that being the group of Kasereka Kabidon, the FPP-AP, the Patriotic Front for Peace People's Army. It's a mouthful, but it's okay. So basically, they launched an offensive against them, which has resulted in the displacement of around 15,000 to 20,000 people. Now, this offensive has actually been successful, which is kind of surprising, given the situation that Gidon has put himself in. Well, not necessarily. That Mr. Bouira put Gidon in. So essentially, Gidon's forces, who are strong allies of the Congolese government, and also there's strong evidence to suggest that they are benefactors of aid by the Rwandan government because they have a common enemy in the FDLR and their allies. So essentially they occupied 3 different towns as well as other villages that were formerly under the control of the FPP-AP. The FPP-AP being a group that opposes Gidon as well as pretty much every other armed group in the region, every major armed group. As far as I know, they're opposed to the FDLR as well. And the group they broke off from, the UPDI, which was part of the Mazembe sort of cluster. So this whole thing happened. As far as I know, it's still going on. But pretty much it's kind of frightening people in the local area. Local officials and also civilians have asked for the military to intervene. We know they won't. And as far as we know, we haven't seen who's died in the clashes. We most likely won't. But that's going on, which is interesting because it's been a while since the FPP-AP has been in the news. They took advantage of the whole internal clashes with Gidon and Bouira's forces and managed to seize a considerable amount of territory, given how small the group is and given how little territory they had. But it seems Gidon is finally focusing on getting this back. So it's interesting to see. I'll certainly be monitoring this a lot more if I even see any more news about this. But it's definitely interesting. It's definitely unfortunate that so many people have been displaced by it. Hopefully the clashes end soon. Hopefully the people will be able to return to their homes. But until then, I'll be monitoring that. So that's it for the Yakutumbism podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed, subscribe, like, all those things. I'll be trying to come out with more of these because, you know, it's fun to do, and also it's definitely a better format than Instagram captions. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll see y'all later.